I don't know why I agreed to house-sit that cabin in the middle of the forest. Maybe it was because my friend Steve begged me, or maybe because it sounded like the perfect getaway from the noise of the city. Whatever it was, I regretted it the second I stepped out of my car and heard nothing. The forest was unnaturally silent, the kind of quiet that makes your skin prickle like something is watching. Steve had warned me about the place being a bit rustic. That was the understatement of the year. The cabin looked like it had grown out of the earth itself, old wooden beams darkened by time and moss creeping up its foundation. The windows were smudged and almost opaque, as if something didn't want me to see out, or worse, didn't want anyone seeing in. I hauled my overnight bag inside and bolted the door. It smelled faintly of mildew and something metallic, like old blood. There was a single lamp in the living room, casting just enough light to make the shadows jitter with every movement I made. Steve's parting words rang in my ears, just keep an eye out at night. There've been stories. I shook it off. I'm not superstitious, and I sure as hell didn't believe in ghost stories. But that didn't explain the growing unease creeping up my spine. Around 11 p.m., I heard it. A thud. Just outside the cabin. I froze mid-step, straining to hear over the blood pounding in my ears. Another thud followed, heavier this time, like something massive had just dropped onto the porch. My mind scrambled for explanations, maybe an animal, a raccoon, a bear. But bears don't scratch at doors. The sound was faint at first, a long, deliberate scrape of claws against the wood. It moved slowly, dragging from the top of the door to the bottom. I wanted to laugh it off, tell myself it was the wind. But I couldn't move. My body betrayed me, locked in place as the scratching grew more insistent. And then, it stopped. I took one tentative step toward the door, gripping a fireplace poker in both hands. I was about to press my ear to the wood when the silence outside shattered. Someone, or something, knocked. 3 times. I stood there, staring at the door, my breath hitching with each shaky exhale. The knocks weren't frantic or desperate, they were deliberate, patient. Almost polite. That somehow made it worse. Steve. I called out, though I knew better. My voice cracked, and the silence swallowed it whole. No response. I tightened my grip on the fireplace poker, every rational part of me screaming to stay inside, to stay safe. But something about the sound, a faint shuffle, a low murmur, drew me closer. My hand reached for the doorknob, shaking so badly I barely had control. I turned it and cracked the door open. There was no one there. Just the forest, stretching endlessly under the dim light of a pale moon. The porch was empty except for the warped wooden boards and an eerie wetness that glistened as though something had been standing there, dripping. I leaned out, scanning the tree line. Shadows danced between the trunks, but none of them looked human, or even alive. I was about to slam the door shut when I noticed it. A trail. Dark smears led from the porch steps into the woods. They were too thick to be water, too dark to be anything other than blood. It pooled where the creature, or person, had knocked, and then dripped in staggered lines down the stairs. Every instinct screamed to go back inside, to lock the door and wait until morning. But curiosity, or stupidity, had other plans. Against all better judgment, I grabbed a flashlight, pulled on my boots, and stepped into the night. The forest swallowed me whole. My flashlight barely pierced the oppressive darkness, illuminating only fragments of the trail. The blood led deeper, winding through the underbrush. The trees seemed to lean closer as I walked, their twisted branches clawing at the sky. Every step I took felt heavier, as if the forest didn't want me there. That's when I noticed the silence again. No rustling leaves, no chirping insects, not even the whisper of wind. It was the kind of silence that presses against your skull, filling the empty spaces in your mind with dread. And then, a sound. Not ahead of me, behind. A soft crunch, like a footstep on dead leaves. I whipped around, the flashlight beam darting wildly through the trees. Nothing. No movement, no figure, no eyes glinting back at me. I called out again, this time louder. "Hello? Steve? Is this some kind of joke?" Silence. When I turned back to the trail, my stomach sank. The blood was gone. No trail, no smeared drops, no sign I'd ever been following anything. The ground was clean, untouched. It didn't make sense. I spun in circles, flashlight shaking in my hand, and realized I'd lost my bearings. The cabin wasn't behind me anymore. Just an endless stretch of trees. And then I heard it, a low, wet sound, like something chewing. The noise came from my right, faint but distinct. My heart leapt into my throat as I slowly turned toward it. The flashlight beam caught movement, a figure hunched on the ground, its back to me. It was human, or something close. Its limbs were unnaturally long, its spine arched like a question mark. The figure jerked and twitched, shoving something into its mouth with clawed hands. The wet, gnashing sound grew louder, sickeningly visceral. I took a step back, my foot snapping a twig. The thing froze. Its head jerked toward me with an inhuman speed. I couldn't see its face, only the faint glint of reflective eyes in the beam of my flashlight. It stared at me, unblinking, its chest heaving as it crouched lower, coiled like a predator ready to spring. I ran. I sprinted through the forest, flashlight beam jerking wildly as branches whipped at my face and arms. My lungs burned with every gasp of cold air, but I didn't dare slow down. Behind me, the sound of something crashing through the underbrush grew louder, closer. Whatever it was fast. The ground became uneven, roots jutting out like traps. I stumbled, nearly falling, but adrenaline kept me upright. My mind screamed to focus on the path ahead, but I couldn't stop myself from looking back. The light caught it. The creature was moving on all fours now, bounding after me like some grotesque mockery of a wolf. Its limbs bent at impossible angles, the elongated joints snapping with every stride. Its face, God, its face, was almost human but stretched too far, the skin pale and glistening like something that had never seen sunlight. Its mouth was wide, impossibly so, teeth jagged and too numerous, grinning like it knew I wouldn't make it. I turned back, pumping my legs harder, lungs threatening to give out. My flashlight flickered, the beam weakening. "Not now, damn it!" I shouted, my voice hoarse with panic. The trees thinned, revealing a small clearing up ahead. In the center was something that stopped me cold, a rusted hunting stand, barely standing, its ladder tilted at an awkward angle. It wasn't much, but it was something. I had no choice. I scrambled up the ladder, my hands slipping on the icy rungs. The wood groaned under my weight, threatening to give out, but I didn't stop. I reached the top just as the creature lunged at the base, its claws raking deep gouges into the wood. It howled, a piercing, guttural scream that made my ears ring and my stomach churn. I pressed myself against the back of the platform, holding the flashlight like a weapon, even though I knew it was useless. The thing began climbing. Its movements were jerky but deliberate, claws hooking into the wood as it pulled itself upward. The whole stand shook with its weight, creaking ominously. I screamed, throwing the flashlight at its face. It struck with a dull thud, causing the creature to pause for just a second before resuming its ascent. Desperate, I felt around the platform for anything I could use, a rock, a stick, anything. My fingers closed around something metal, a rusted hunting knife wedged between the boards. It wasn't much, but it was sharp enough. The creature's head appeared over the edge of the platform, its milky eyes locking onto mine. It hissed, a sound like steam escaping a broken pipe. Without thinking, I lunged, driving the knife into its shoulder. It shrieked, the force of its reaction knocking me backward. The platform tilted dangerously, the supports cracking beneath us. I pulled the knife free and stabbed again, this time sinking the blade into its chest. The creature recoiled, clawing at the knife, its balance faltering. The platform gave one final groan before collapsing entirely. We fell. The impact knocked the wind out of me. My head hit the ground hard, and for a moment, the world was nothing but spinning darkness. When I came to, the creature was writhing a few feet away, the knife still lodged in its chest. Its movements were slower now, jerky and uncoordinated. This was my chance. Ignoring the pain in my body, I pushed myself to my feet and ran. I didn't know where I was going, just away. The forest blurred around me, branches tearing at my skin, the cold air stinging my lungs. And then, through the trees, I saw it, the cabin. I burst through the door, slamming it shut and locking it behind me. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely slide the bolt into place. I collapsed onto the floor, every muscle screaming in protest. Outside, the forest was silent again. But I knew better now. The silence wasn't safety. It was waiting. From the edge of the window, I saw movement. The creature was there, lurking just beyond the tree line, its pale form illuminated by the faint moonlight. It didn't approach. It just watched. Then it did something that chilled me to my core. It smiled. A slow, deliberate smile that stretched impossibly wide, its jagged teeth glinting in the dark. And then, without a sound, it turned and disappeared into the shadows. I didn't sleep that night. When dawn finally broke, I grabbed my keys and fled. I never told Steve what happened. I don't think he'd believe me. But I'll never forget that thing in the forest. And sometimes, when I'm alone at night, I swear I can still feel it watching. Waiting. I thought leaving the cabin would be the end of it. For weeks after, I tried to convince myself it was all just some horrifying dream, a trick of isolation and fear. But the reality sank in every time I closed my eyes and saw that smile. That impossible, jagged grin. I didn't tell anyone. Not Steve, not my family, not my friends. What would I even say? That I'd been chased through the woods by something that shouldn't exist. That the forest wasn't just trees and wildlife, but something alive, aware. I moved on, or at least pretended to. Back in the city, I threw myself into work, surrounded myself with noise and people, hoping it would drown out the memory of that night. It worked, for a while. Until the dream started. The first one was simple. I was back in the forest, standing in the clearing where the hunting stand used to be. The trees loomed taller, their branches clawing at the sky like skeletal hands. The air was thick, chokingly humid, and the silence pressed down on me like a weight. Then I saw it. The creature stood at the edge of the clearing, just like it had outside the cabin. Its eyes glinted in the dark, unblinking. Watching. I couldn't move. My feet were rooted to the ground as it began to crawl toward me, its limbs bending and snapping like a puppet on broken strings. I woke up drenched in sweat, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst. The dreams didn't stop. Every night, the same forest, the same suffocating silence. Sometimes the creature would chase me again, its guttural screeches echoing through the trees. Other times it would just stand there, grinning, as if daring me to come closer. Each time, I woke up feeling more drained, more paranoid. And then the scratches started. At first, I thought it was just the old pipes in my apartment or maybe a stray animal outside my window. But the scratches weren't random. They were deliberate. Long, slow drags that mirrored the sound I'd heard on the cabin door. I tried to ignore it. Told myself I was imagining things. Until the night I came home to find the marks. 3 deep grooves ran across my front door, each one perfectly parallel, as if carved by enormous claws. My stomach dropped, and a cold sweat broke out on my forehead. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch with every light in the apartment turned on, clutching a baseball bat. The scratches didn't come back, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. That something was just waiting. The next morning, I found another mark. This time, it was on my bedroom window. A single, jagged line that cut through the layer of grime on the glass. That's when I realized it wasn't just the dreams. It wasn't my imagination. The forest hadn't let me go. I started seeing it everywhere. Reflections in shop windows, shadows in alleyways, shapes lurking just out of sight. I told myself it was paranoia, that I was just on edge. But deep down, I knew the truth. It was real. One night, I finally snapped. I grabbed my keys, jumped in my car, and drove. I didn't know where I was going, but I needed to get as far away as possible. The highway stretched out in front of me, endless and empty. And then the car stalled. It sputtered once, twice, and died completely, leaving me stranded in the middle of nowhere. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel, trying to convince myself it was just bad luck. But then I heard it, the sound I'd been dreading. A soft, deliberate knock on the passenger side window. I didn't look. I couldn't. My hands trembled as I fumbled for the ignition, trying to start the car. The knocking came again, harder this time. Then a voice. Low, raspy, and wrong. Let me in. I don't know how, but the car roared to life. I slammed my foot on the gas and sped off, not daring to look in the rearview mirror. I didn't stop until I reached the safety of my apartment, where I locked every door and window and collapsed onto the floor. I don't go into the woods anymore. I don't even leave the city if I can help it. But I know it's still out there, waiting for me. Sometimes, late at night, I hear the knocking again. Always faint, always distant, like it's testing the boundaries of my sanity. I don't know what it wants. Maybe it's a warning. Maybe it's a promise. All I know is this, the forest never lets go. Months passed, but the sense of dread never left. I tried to reclaim some semblance of normalcy, but the creature, the thing, lingered in every shadow. It wasn't just paranoia. It wasn't just fear. It was something deeper, something primal. It was stalking me. The dreams escalated. They weren't just dreams anymore. They felt real. I'd wake up with the taste of damp earth in my mouth, my sheets smeared with dirt and pine needles. Once, I woke up with a deep scratch on my arm, 3 jagged lines that matched the marks on my door. My rational mind scrambled for explanations, sleepwalking, maybe, but deep down, I knew the truth. It was pulling me back. I avoided the woods at all costs. My life became a fragile routine, designed to keep me surrounded by people, by lights, by noise. But no matter how hard I tried, the forest found its way in. One night, I got a call from Steve. His voice was frantic, barely a whisper. "Did you go back to the cabin?" he asked, his words tumbling out in a rush. "No," I said. "Why would I?" My heart raced. Just hearing the word, cabin, made my stomach twist. "You need to stay away," he said. "I don't know what's going on, but something's been happening out there." "What do you mean?" I pressed, gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles ached. Steve hesitated. Then, in a trembling voice, he said, "I went up there last week. There were tracks, huge ones, leading around the cabin. And I swear, man, I heard something inside. Something big. I didn't stick around to find out." His words sent a cold chill down my spine. But it wasn't just fear. It was something else. Something darker. A pull. That night, the dreams were worse than ever. I was standing in the forest, surrounded by trees that seemed to breathe, their trunks swelling and contracting like lungs. The creature was there, just out of reach, its eyes glinting in the darkness. But this time, it didn't chase me. It didn't move at all. It just whispered. "Come back." The words slithered through my mind like smoke, curling around my thoughts. When I woke up, I was on the floor of my living room, the front door wide open, cold air spilling in from the hallway. I slammed the door shut and locked it, my hands shaking. But the pull was stronger now, a gnawing ache in my chest. I could feel it, dragging me toward the forest. Toward the cabin. I knew I wouldn't be able to resist much longer. The next day, I packed a bag. I told myself it was just to get answers, to confront whatever this was and end it once and for all. But deep down, I knew the truth. The forest wasn't done with me. And I wasn't done with it. Driving back to the cabin felt like a death march. The highway stretched endlessly, the trees lining the road like silent sentinels. By the time I reached the dirt path leading to the cabin, the sun had dipped below the horizon, leaving the world bathed in a sickly gray light. The cabin looked exactly as I'd left it, but something was off. The air felt heavier, charged with an energy that made my skin crawl. The front door was ajar, swinging gently in the breeze. I stepped inside, flashlight in hand, my heart hammering against my ribs. The smell hit me first, earthy and metallic, like wet soil and blood. The living room was exactly as I'd left it, but the walls seemed darker, the shadows deeper. And then I heard it. A low, wet sound, like something breathing. It came from the bedroom. I crept toward the door, every step feeling like a mile. The sound grew louder, more guttural, a deep rumble that resonated in my chest. My hand trembled as I reached for the doorknob. The door swung open on its own. The bedroom was empty, no furniture, no bed, just four bare walls. But the floor was wrong. The wooden planks were warped and cracked, bulging upward as if something was trying to escape from beneath. And then it happened. The floor split open, a gaping hole tearing through the center of the room. From the darkness, a pale, elongated hand emerged, its claws scraping against the wood. Then another hand, and then, it crawled out. The creature was larger now, its limbs impossibly long, its face stretched into a grotesque parody of a human grin. It stared at me, its milky eyes unblinking, and whispered the same words I'd heard in my dreams. "Welcome home." This time, I didn't run. There was nowhere to go. The forest had me, and I knew I wouldn't leave it again. Because the truth is, the forest doesn't just let you go. It makes you part of it. I don't remember much after the creature crawled out of that gaping hole. There are flashes in my mind, fragmented and jumbled, its long, skeletal fingers reaching for me, its jagged smile stretching impossibly wide. I remember the room darkening, as if the air itself had been swallowed, leaving only the suffocating weight of dread. And then, nothing. When I woke up, I was in the forest. The trees stood impossibly tall, their twisted branches blocking out the sky. The air was damp and cold, carrying the metallic tang of blood and decay. I had no idea how I'd gotten there or how long I'd been unconscious. My body ached, but there were no visible wounds. My clothes were damp and smeared with mud, and my flashlight was gone. I tried to get my bearings, but the forest seemed endless. Every direction looked the same, gnarled trees and tangled underbrush stretching into infinity. It was as if the forest itself was alive, shifting and twisting to keep me lost. I started walking. It didn't take long before I realized I wasn't alone. At first, it was subtle, faint whispers that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. They weren't words, just a low, guttural murmur that vibrated in my chest. Then came the shadows, darting between the trees, just out of sight. I'd catch a glimpse of movement, a pale limb, a flash of teeth, but every time I turned to look, there was nothing. The forest was playing with me, teasing me. And I could feel it pulling me deeper. After what felt like hours, I stumbled into a clearing. In the center was something that made my stomach drop, a tree, unlike any I'd ever seen. Its trunk was massive, blackened and twisted, its roots sprawling like claws across the ground. The bark was slick and pulsing, as if the tree were alive. And then I saw them. Faces. Hundreds of them, etched into the bark, their mouths frozen in silent screams. Their eyes followed me as I approached, unblinking and filled with despair. I stepped closer, compelled by some unseen force, and reached out to touch the tree. The moment my fingers brushed the bark, a jolt of pain shot through my body. Images flooded my mind, flashes of the faces on the tree, their lives, their deaths. They had all been like me, trapped in the forest, hunted by the creature. And now, they were part of it. I stumbled back, clutching my head as the whispers grew louder. The tree seemed to hum with energy, its roots shifting, the ground trembling beneath my feet. That's when I heard it. The creature's voice. "Come closer." I turned, and there it was, standing at the edge of the clearing. It was larger now, its limbs elongated and distorted, its grin impossibly wide. Its milky eyes locked onto mine, and for a moment, I felt paralyzed. But then something inside me snapped. I wasn't going to let it take me, not like the others. I reached down and grabbed a jagged branch, holding it like a weapon. My hands trembled, but I forced myself to meet its gaze. "You won't have me," I said, my voice shaking but defiant. The creature tilted its head, as if amused. Then it lunged. The fight was a blur of chaos and desperation. I swung the branch wildly, each strike glancing off its slick, sinewy form. It moved with an unnatural speed, its limbs contorting and twisting as it dodged my attacks. I could feel its claws raking at my skin, cold and sharp, but adrenaline kept me on my feet. Finally, I saw an opening. The creature lunged again, and I drove the branch into its chest with every ounce of strength I had. It screamed, a high, piercing wail that shook the trees. The ground trembled, and the tree in the center of the clearing began to writhe, its roots curling and twisting violently. The creature staggered back, clawing at the branch embedded in its chest. Its milky eyes locked onto mine one last time, and for a moment, I saw something that chilled me to my core. Fear. And then it collapsed. The clearing erupted in chaos. The tree's roots tore through the ground, its bark splitting and cracking as the faces etched into it began to scream. The whispers turned into deafening roars, and the air grew thick with an oppressive energy. I didn't wait to see what would happen next. I turned and ran, the forest blurring around me as I pushed through the underbrush. The whispers followed me, growing fainter with every step, until finally, the forest began to thin. When I emerged, the sun was rising, casting the world in a soft, golden light. I collapsed onto the dirt road, gasping for air, the weight of the forest finally lifting. I never went back to the cabin. I moved to a different city, far from any woods, and tried to rebuild my life. But the memories lingered, haunting me like shadows at the edge of my mind. Sometimes, I still hear the whispers in my dreams. Sometimes, I see faces in the bark of trees. And sometimes, when the night is quiet and the world is still, I feel the forest watching. Because the forest never forgets. For years, I told myself I was free. The nightmares faded, the scratches stopped, and the forest's pull lessened with time. But deep down, I knew it wasn't over. The kind of terror I experienced doesn't just go away, it waits. It started subtly, like before. A flicker of movement in the corner of my eye, a shadow lingering too long on the edge of the streetlights. I'd shake it off, tell myself it was stress or fatigue. But then the dreams returned. The forest was back in my mind, more vivid than ever. I was standing in the clearing again, staring at that cursed tree. The faces in the bark were different now. One of them was mine. I woke up gasping, my heart racing, and found a fresh scratch on my arm. 3 jagged lines, exactly like the ones I'd found on the cabin door years ago. The realization hit me like a cold wave, the forest hadn't let me go. It had been patient, waiting for the right moment to reclaim what it thought belonged to it. One night, the whispers returned. I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, when I heard it, a faint, guttural murmur coming from just outside my window. My blood ran cold. Slowly, I got up and moved to the window, careful not to make a sound. Pulling back the curtain, I saw nothing at first, just the empty street, bathed in the sickly orange glow of the streetlights. But then I looked closer. At the far edge of the light, just beyond the reach of the glow, something was standing. Its silhouette was unmistakable, tall, elongated limbs, hunched posture. It was back. I slammed the curtain shut and backed away, my mind racing. It wasn't just here to haunt me anymore. It was here to take me back. I couldn't stay. Grabbing a bag, I stuffed in a few essentials, clothes, my wallet, my keys, and bolted out the door. My car was parked just down the street, but every step felt like a mile. The air was thick, and the world seemed eerily quiet, like the calm before a storm. As I reached my car, I heard it again. The whisper. Closer now. I didn't look back. I jumped into the car, started the engine, and peeled out of the driveway. The rearview mirror caught a flash of movement, a pale figure slipping back into the shadows. My chest heaved with relief, but I knew it wasn't over. Not yet. I drove for hours, not caring where I ended up, as long as it was far away. The highway stretched endlessly ahead, lined with tall trees that seemed to close in on me. My phone buzzed in the passenger seat, a text from an unknown number. "You can't run. Come back." My hands trembled on the wheel. The road in front of me began to twist, the trees bending unnaturally, their branches reaching toward the car like claws. I blinked, trying to focus, but the forest was no longer just outside. It was everywhere. The car stalled. The engine sputtered and died, leaving me stranded on a desolate stretch of road. Panic surged through me as I fumbled with the keys, trying to restart it. But before I could, the whispers grew louder. I looked up and saw them. Dozens of figures emerging from the trees, their pale forms gliding silently toward me. At their center was the creature, taller now, its grin wider, its eyes burning with a malevolent light. It raised one elongated hand and pointed at me. The whispers turned into a deafening roar, filling my head with a single command: "Come home." I don't remember what happened next. When I woke up, I was lying in the clearing again, the twisted tree looming over me. The faces in the bark stared down, their mouths moving silently, as if pleading for help. I tried to stand, but my body wouldn't obey. The ground beneath me felt alive, pulsing in time with the whispers. The creature appeared, stepping out from the shadows of the tree. It didn't lunge or attack this time. Instead, it knelt beside me, its milky eyes boring into mine. "You belong to us now," it said, its voice a low, guttural rasp. I wanted to scream, to fight, but the forest had taken everything from me, my strength, my will, my soul. The creature reached out, its clawed hand hovering over my chest, and I felt it, an icy pull, as if it was extracting something vital, something I couldn't live without. And then, nothing. I woke up in my apartment, drenched in sweat. The sun was rising, casting a pale light across the room. For a moment, I thought it was all just a dream. But then I saw the marks. My arms, my chest, my back, covered in jagged scratches, etched into my skin like the forest's final claim. The whispers are gone now. The dreams have stopped. But the forest left its mark on me, and I know it's only a matter of time before it calls me back. Because the forest never lets go. It only waits. I knew I couldn't escape it forever. The forest had claimed me the moment I stepped into that cabin all those years ago. It had let me run, let me think I could rebuild my life, only to pull me back when I was most vulnerable. Now, it was clear, I wasn't just a victim. I was part of it. And there was only one way this would end. I spent days preparing for the inevitable. I left notes for my friends, a vague explanation that wouldn't make sense but might offer some closure. I packed the essentials: water, a flashlight, a knife. But deep down, I knew none of it would matter. When the whispers returned one final time, louder and more insistent than ever, I didn't resist. I got into my car and drove back to the forest. The dirt path leading to the cabin was overgrown, as if nature had tried to swallow it whole. The air felt thick and oppressive, the trees looming like sentinels guarding a secret. As I approached the cabin, I saw it again, the door ajar, the faint metallic smell wafting out like a warning. I stepped inside, and the memories flooded back, every moment of terror, every chase through the woods, every haunting whisper. The cabin seemed smaller now, darker. The walls pulsed faintly, like the breathing of a living thing. "Welcome back," a voice rasped. It wasn't just in my head this time. It was real, low and guttural, coming from the far corner of the room. I turned and saw it, the creature, hunched and grinning, its elongated limbs folding and unfolding like a grotesque spider. Its milky eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "You've come to pay the price," it said. I didn't respond. What could I say? It was right. I had come back, willingly, knowing this would be the end. The creature gestured toward the gaping hole in the floor where it had emerged before. The twisted tree loomed beneath, its roots writhing like snakes. The faces etched into its bark were clearer now, their silent screams more vivid. "You will join them," it whispered. "The forest needs its keeper." Something snapped inside me at those words. Keeper. Was this what it wanted all along, for me to replace it? To take its place as the living embodiment of the forest's will? The thought made my blood run cold. But then, a spark of defiance flared within me. If this was the end, I wasn't going down without a fight. I lunged at the creature with the knife, driving it into its chest with all my strength. The blade sank in, black ichor spilling out like tar. The creature shrieked, its elongated limbs flailing wildly, but I didn't stop. I pulled the knife free and struck again, and again, each blow fueled by years of fear and rage. The ground beneath us began to tremble, the walls of the cabin groaning as if the forest itself was in pain. The creature's screams echoed through the air, mingling with the roaring whispers that now filled my head. "You cannot kill the forest," it bellowed. "You are bound to it." But I wasn't trying to kill it. I was trying to destroy myself, the link that kept me tethered to this nightmare. I staggered toward the hole, dragging the creature with me. Its claws raked at my arms, its teeth snapping inches from my face, but I didn't let go. With a final surge of strength, I hurled us both into the pit. The air grew colder as we fell, the darkness swallowing us whole. I felt the tree's roots wrap around my limbs, pulling me deeper, their icy touch seeping into my bones. The creature shrieked and writhed, its form disintegrating into the shadows. The whispers grew louder, a deafening cacophony that threatened to split my mind. But in the midst of the chaos, I heard something else, a faint, familiar voice. My own. "You are free." When I opened my eyes, I was standing in the clearing. The twisted tree was gone, replaced by a single sapling, its leaves vibrant and green. The faces in the bark had vanished, their screams silenced. The forest was quiet. Not the oppressive, suffocating silence I had come to fear, but a peaceful stillness, like the woods were finally at rest. I walked out of the forest that day, leaving the cabin behind. The pull was gone, the whispers silenced. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. I never told anyone what happened. The scratches on my arms faded, the nightmares stopped, and the forest no longer haunted me. But sometimes, when I'm alone in the stillness of the night, I think about the sapling, growing quietly where the twisted tree once stood. And I wonder if, one day, someone else will wander into the forest. If the cycle will begin again. Because the forest never truly dies. It only waits. Did you like these stories? Write in the comments. And please write what you didn't like. It will be useful for me to know your opinion. And I will improve my work. Thank you. Subscribe to my channel and click the bell so as not to miss new stories. I try for you.